We journeyed to the desert east of Phoenix, to the Superstition Wilderness, a strange place. A photogenic place filled with rugged landscape, saguaros and trails. Mountain vistas that go miles and miles, a land of mystery. Starring Indigo Knowledge and Downhill Trucker. We came here to see what the superstitions held, what secrets lied inside, and could we find the lost Dutchman gold? We are the explorers of the Superstition Mountains. Our journey began when we signed in. And then we hit the trail. The trail was well established, and the first section was quite a bit up. There were a few markers. We started on the Bluff Springs Trail. The superstitions are not for novices. Originally, the Spanish called these mountains the Sierra de la Espuma, which means foam mountains. But as time went on, a native tribe called the Pimas told stories of sounds that are very strange, disappearing people, and also deaths that are unexplained in these mountains. And thus, the name Superstition was born. Climbing higher into these mountains, you got to see the raw, rugged beauty and the expanse of what this wilderness truly was. The rock in these mountains are the result of intense volcanic activity 25 million years ago. Over 2,500 cubic miles of ash and lava were deposited all over this area. When the volcanoes collapsed, they left calderas, and an upthrust of lava from the calderas, and then erosion over time created the mountains that we see today. Occasionally, seismic activity still occurs and echoes in the canyon walls, creating the thunder that the natives heard hundreds of years ago when they called these mountains the home of the thunder god. Saguaros are abundant in the superstitions. They grow up to 40 feet tall, live over 150 years, and weigh 5,000 pounds. They need a lot of water to survive, and they do this with a 100-foot root system that extends well out into the desert soil. We packed a lot of water as well. It's necessary, as much of this water is quite dirty. It is filterable in the worst situations, and in these situations, you are just happy to find any water in a dry desert environment like this. Indigo takes a quick water break as we had to stay hydrated in these hot and sunny conditions on trail. As we reached the high point of the day, we knew it was time to head down. And quickly down we would descend. There were times you just wanted to take in the beauty, and then there was also the idea that around any corner, the lost Dutchman's gold, worth millions and millions of dollars, could be waiting for us. Instead, we are greeted with wildflowers. Quite a few different varieties. These yellow ones caught our eye. finished up the last bit of our hike and began to head to camp. Our camp was beautiful and simple. There was plenty of cow shit. There was also a huge saguaro. We approximated that it was over 25 feet tall, and it stood in the center of our camp, right next to our fire room. That night we relaxed and watched the sun set and got ready for dinner. Dinner that night was one of Downhill Trucker's specialties, Maryland steamed shrimp, done with a generous helping of Old Bay, and a little beer and a lot of love. Needless to say, the shrimp were all devoured. We sat around the campfire and we devoured a few more beers as well. We reminisced the day before, talked about the Lost Dutchman mine, and got ready for the next day. The next morning, we explored our camp. It was full of cactus, plenty of them, lots of chala, saguaro, and other prickly things. But it was a beautiful spot, with big skies, big mountains, and lots of quietness. We really saw no one at our camp at all. The road was quite rutty to get there, but that's what got us our solitude. So then we drove to the trailhead. We even had a little traffic jam caused by horses. There were camps all along this road, Peralta Road, and some were on Arizona Land Trust area, which you need a permit for, and some was National Forest, which you're allowed to stay without a permit. Regardless, there are camps all around. We returned to the Peralta Trailhead and the Superstition Wilderness. It was time to begin day 2. We began hiking up again. This time our trail and our objective were a little bit different. While today's objective was different, we were always on the search for the Lost Dutchman's gold. The Dutchman was Jacob Waltz. He was known around town as a generous man. Some thought he was a thief, but regardless, he definitely had lots of gold. He found it here in the Superstitions. As of 1977, there were 62 different stories about the Lost Dutchman mine, and some consider it the most famous mine in America. Over 9,000 people a year come here searching for the Lost Dutchman's gold. Some say it's Apache gold that was stashed because the Apache had no use for gold. Others say it was the Peralta family. The Peraltas were a legendary Mexican family. Pedro de Peralta was the original governor of New Mexico and supposedly mined much of the area. Later, the Peralta stones were found. These are ornate carved maps made out of stone, and apparently they hold the treasure map to the Lost Dutchman mines. However, despite all of this knowledge, there are no historical writings or evidence that can back up the specific location of the Peraltas or if they were even mining this area at all. Many people have passed away searching for the Lost Dutchman's gold, but that wasn't our goal today. We were on the search for something else. And that something was Weaver's Needle. This point is called Fremont Saddle and actually has one of the best views in all of the Superstitions. We passed the saddle and went off trail to get closer to the needle. Weaver's Needle is a volcanic remnant created when a thick layer of tuff eroded, leaving a 4,500-foot spire. Tuff is fused volcanic ash and lava that was created during this heavy volcanic period. Indigo had gotten to a great viewpoint, but we wanted to go further. So further we went, and then we reached a place called Lone Tree. This was by far our favorite overlook of the entire trip, and an area that provided great solitude in one of the most remote areas that we had explored on this entire trip. Naturally, we figured it'd be a great place to have lunch, so we did. Turkey sandwiches while we soaked in the views. We stopped to smell the roses. One last look at Weaver's Needle, and then we began the descent. While walking back, we thought about what a great trip this had been, but we had also thought about how great it would be to find the Lost Dutchman's gold. You never know, it could be right around the bend. Indigo had discovered a cave. We looked into it. It was deep, way deep. We found the Lost Dutchman's gold? Not at all, but we had discovered a beautiful and mysterious place, a place called the Superstition Mountains. A place with walls of volcanic, beautiful, and rugged rock. A place that we could call home. And we did. We camped here one last night, we watched the sunset, and it was a magnificent evening once again at our lone saguaro camp. This camp was one of my favorites, and the only people we had to share it with were some Texas Longhorns. As night came, we decided to have one last campfire. The Apaches called the Superstition's gateway to hell, and there are rumors that it is an area full of vortexes. We found the Superstitions to be intriguing, magical, beautiful, and possibly a little bit scary. We also fell in love with this wilderness, and we can't wait to return.